Hello, my friends. It is I, Hybris, and welcome back to a much delayed video of World of Tanks. Now, today I got a replay from a good friend of mine, Mr. Bazioul, the Baboon. And I have watched the beginning of this replay just to make sure my recording's working properly, but I haven't watched the full thing. And I'm told that it's quite a game. So he's in his 50 TP on mines. Nice south spawn there. Very balanced spawn, as I'm sure all of us know. And sarcasm. And he's platooning up with a couple of buddies from skill 1 and skill 5. Very nice. Now I know Bazioul likes this tank. In fact, I know he likes the Polish heavy tanks. Full stop. So let's see what he's able to pull out here. So he's going to go straight up to the middle. He can play pretty well hull down over this ridge. That's one unique factor, I guess you can say, about the Polish heavies, is that despite looking quite a lot like some of the Russian heavies, they've actually got some pretty respectable gun depression and good turret armor. Now unfortunately the Somois still manages to find his cupola there, but he does punish him back for a pretty good trade of 584 for 333 lost. And he's also going to have a little cuddle with his 430, who doesn't appear to appreciate that very much. He's going to peek over and slam the WZ as well. And obviously the other thing these tanks have is pretty incredible turret armor. And I've just noticed, as he hits a disgusting shot on that cupola, that there's no arty in this game, which means he can sit here to his heart's content and basically shoot anything that drives out in front of him. So we could see a nice game here. Unfortunately, one of the platoon mates has already gone down. Rip. Rip, Angel. A valiant effort, no doubt. He's thinking about taking a shot at the UDES, but those Swedish meds, if they're picking up at you over a ridge, you're really going to struggle to pen them, and oh my word. That's absolutely filthy. No right ever to pen that kind of shot on the VK who's desperately trying to get out of the way. But we'll give him credit. Good aim. Good aim. I think that's what we'll say. He's still trying to find a mistake from the UDES to give him a pen shot. It's going to be pretty hard to pen this guy. As you can see, he does have a slight angle on one of his cupolas, but hitting that is going to be pretty difficult. And he takes a hit from a Waffentrake that's out of the back, which is some good info. At least he knows where he is now. But he's peeking well. He's staying hull down over the little ridge in the middle. The TTP tries to catch him through the bushes, and to be fair, nearly does so. He was probably a little bit unlucky not to pen there. I don't know how much of his side he would have been able to see, but either way, tier 9 heavy tank and probably the worst tier 8 in the game. Not overly surprising that that was a bounce rather than a pen shot. He's playing patient. It's only 1-2. There's still a lot of tanks in this game. And the thing about playing in a position like this is there's so many angles of fire at you. If you make a tiny little mistake over that ridge, just expose your track or something. If you get caught, you can literally be dead. That could be the end of your game, because there's so many tanks that could shoot and keep you perma-tracked that you just will never get out there again. So misses a shot onto the VK, and then he takes 2 shots from a Tortoise who's sat at the back as well. So he now knows there's 2 TDs at the back, both of whom are watching him, which is a pretty decisive factor, if that's the right way to put it, to say don't push. Despite the fact that the VK's fallen back, he knows if he drives over this ridge aggressively, he's going to take a lot of damage. That Tortoise and the Waffen, to be fair, as soon as they can see his hull, they're both pretty accurate and they've both got pretty good DPM and good pen. They are going to shred him to pieces, so he's got to stay patient. And the team are making a little bit of pressure on the other side. Obviously, south spawn mines, it's kind of easy to get the hill. You should really take the hill from south spawn mines, as Bazioul's now doing. But sometimes using that advantage can be difficult, and the team are doing a good job of staying, you know, being fairly careful, I say, as Spider Chico takes a few in the face for maybe a slightly aggressive peek. Maybe he thought he wouldn't be spotted there, and he takes a couple of shots back. But this is one of the problems, I think, with Mines as a map. Because it's so difficult to break down a team that have got control of the hill, it becomes such a campy game. And the problem with the hill is, as well, although it is a very powerful part of the map, it's very difficult in a lot of tanks to be able to do damage from the hill if the enemies are not going to play aggressively, or even if they know how to avoid it. And it can become a very boring and frustrating game, I find, on Mines, because you just kind of have to sit around and wait for people to make mistakes, which, to be honest, can be a lot of games in World of Tanks these days. But anyway, enough moaning. So the team have now pushed down to E0, F9, that kind of position, behind the houses there, which is a good way to make pressure on this side of the map, especially if you know there's tank destroyers around here. If you drive around here and you hug the rock on the way down, you'll just get farmed. These guys will shred you up. This bush here is really easy to spot everybody. You can stay unspotted there. So if you do want to make pressure and you think there's stuff here, it has to be slow. Go around this way. Use the houses. You're more likely to... You've got hard cover, which you might be able to spot things, which means that your guys on the hill can start, you know, digging people out of positions, which will stop you advancing. And tanks like Tortoises are going to be pretty hard to dig out. Now, Bazior's used up all of his standard ammunition now. He's onto his APCR. And he bounces that one on the Tortoise Cupola. I'm sure he's going to try and find a shot on this Udes. Good gun depression, but not quite enough to hit that guy there. But he does manage to spot the Waffen. And just decides to take a swing, because why not? I'd imagine he was probably screaming Russia at the top of his lungs there. I think that's the only way he could possibly have hit that. And good lord, 901 from a Borsig. That's kind of outrageous. What's the max roll on that thing? 750 plus 150 is 900 plus 5%. It's 35. It's not far off a max roll, that. So that's kind of unlucky to take that much damage just from slightly exposing too much. But you know, that Borsig has not been spotted all game, so it's practically impossible for Bazior to know where he is until he unfortunately takes one in the face from him, or in the track, to be more specific. So we're back to the stalemate, unfortunately. Just people poking, trying to find an outlet. And Pido's trying to find an angle on the T-54, but unfortunately pays for it with his life, because that E-50 is probably still in the same position, I'd imagine. It's quite a good counter to the hill if people want to peek aggressively, is over on that side. And at the moment it looks like Bazior is going to try and blind shot those TDs. Or where he thinks the Borsig hit him from. I'm not sure if it was that far over. I might have aimed slightly further left, but I will happily tell you that Bazior is a much better player than me, so that doesn't really... My advice there bears absolutely no weight. And he would do well to ignore it, as would you probably most of the time. Yeah, that E-50 is still sat over there behind that rock. So again, that's good info. He knows that now. He knows if he peeks up there and gets spotted and exposes, the E-50 is probably going to hit him. Whether he pens or not is a different question, but you know, an E-50 is a equal tier medium tank with decent penetration for sure. He's not going to have too much trouble if Bazior exposes the wrong part of his tank. He's still just playing very careful, because this game is quite close as well. I mean, 10-8. And actually, when you look at it, I don't know whether that mod at the top is doing a good job or not, but the hit points are far in favour of the enemy team. despite them having less tanks left. I mean, that E50's got a good chunk of hit points, but Bazior's going to give him... he's giving him one, and he's going to try and give him another one. The E50 knows he can't move now because he knows he's got people aiming right at him. Beautiful. So that's 2. So yeah, the hit points are actually still in favour of the enemy team. I mean, let's have a really quick look. Bazior is on 106 hit points. The Scorpion, the Borsig, and the CDA. I mean, the CDA has got more hit points than the rest of the 4 other remaining team members combined. That's kind of crazy. And the Tortoise, as you can see, has still got a ton. So this is not... And the Borsig is still full. This is not an easy game. No, as is the AMX. These guys have got a lot of hit points to get through. And they can't really afford to take any more damage. In a game with Arty, this would probably be nearly impossible to win. But nearly impossible is probably an exaggeration, but you see what I'm saying. So Bazior is going to go for some HE now. I guess he's hoping to see that Borsig again. Or blind shot him. Nice try. Gets spotted. So he knows something's peeking. We know roughly where the Borsig and the Tortoise are. And we also know that the AMX seems to be going on some kind of flanking move. Which, if Bazior had a few more hit points, it wouldn't really be too much of a problem. But this guy can probably HE him to death. And he's coming up behind his friendly Borsig. And finally swinging this back in the enemy team's favour. And now he's going to come and have a go at Bazior. And it looks like that AMX has got 3 marks, so he knows what he's doing. But he is now a one-shot. If Bazior can reload in time. And he just can. That was pretty close. Pretty close. If that AMX had maybe come around the corner slightly more controlled, that would have been a trouble. But he didn't. So we're now in a 2v2. And our friendly CDA, with a number of hit points left, is... I think he's sightseeing. I'm not sure where he's going. He's going down. Okay. He's probably thinking, I'm guessing, to go like this. And to come up close to these guys here. Which is not a bad idea. Because at the end of the day... Oh, Tortoise has decided to make some pressure. A good idea, to be fair. A very good idea. Because he's well aware of how many hit points Bazior has got. And Bazior knows that he can't afford to sit back and let this guy come at him. He needs to do damage before he gets close. Otherwise he will just keep coming. So he's now easily a one-shot as the AMX gives him one as he's climbing up the hill. And now we're in the slightly awkward position of 2 people on a one-shot trying to find an angle. Which is probably easier for Bazior in this instance. But that doesn't mean it's easy at all. And if you get a bit greedy, it's going to be bad news. The AMX has just hit the Borsig and Bazior misses the shot on the Tortoise, but this Tortoise doesn't want to take advantage of the fact that Bazior has got a long reload. I guess he's worried that he's too slow to get around that corner in time. If you ask me, that's a misplay from the Tortoise, and Bazior does manage to finish him off. And by the way, he's down to his last shell. If he misses this, it could be a draw, given the time. Because if the Borsig, or even lose, if the Borsig's able to hide from the CDA or even get a shot on him afterwards, that's going to be bad news. And surprisingly, he's not. Here he is. Oh, he doesn't give it time to aim. I probably would have, but I guess you can't really take your chances in those games. Ah, blimey. Nice game, nice game. 7-2-50, but I believe there were some blind shots in there. I'll post a link to the replay for this game in the comments or the description for the video, because that was a bit of a stonker. I'm pretty sure there's a few blind shots in there. In fact, if I can pull it up right now, I believe it was over 8,000 damage. And a Fadings medal without rigging. I wonder how many of those you see. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching, guys. That was a pretty tense game. I was surprised how close that was at the end, actually. I thought it might have been, you know, a bit more of a rollover, but that was a pretty close game, and well played to Bazure for sticking through it on the hill at the end there. So thanks a lot, guys. See you again soon. Cheerio.